Okay, well, let's say greetings to everyone and thank you for participating in our webinar. We've had quite a number of registrations, so I think probably some of them will be coming in as we go along. But since we've got quite a number of presentations and things to see, we'll get started as quick as we can. As usual, we don't spend a lot of time making introductions. Let me just say, I think we've got a very interesting topic for you today on an issue that maybe gets a little bit overlooked, but is certainly very emerging in public service delivery. And we've got some good examples of that from Central and Eastern Europe, of how citizens and government services are interacting in a new and sort of unique way in many cases. So we'll give you sort of a broad overlook of what e-governance and digitization is, with some good examples, and particularly from Estonia, which is the leader in this. So you'll get a good idea of what the full scope and all of it is. And but I want to say, in particular, and thanks to the cooperation that we've gotten from the NISPAC working group on e-governance and digitization. They are the ones really making these presentations today, and have come up with some very good case studies and materials and so forth that I think you'll find very interesting. For those who don't know about NISPAC, it's NISPACEE. It stands for the Network of Institutes of Schools and Public Administration of Central and Eastern Europe. It's been around a long time, as long as I've been, and has some very good programs. They have good annual conference. The next one's coming up in Bratislava. They publish a journal quarterly, I believe it is, which is very, very good. So if you want to keep up on things developing in the region, NISPAC is the organization. There's individual as well as institutional members. I think probably more than 100, at least, institutions. Any school or institute of public administration, Central and Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Caucasus, Central Asia, Russia, are in this group, in the Balkans as well. So it's quite a good network. And with that, I'd like to ask Nicola, who is chair of the working group, just to say a few words about what the working group is doing and what their activities are, and then we'll go into the program. So Nicola can just take a few minutes and tell us a little bit more about your activities.
Sure. Thank you, Glenn. Good evening, hopefully everybody. It's evening here in Romania. I'm very glad that we can be part of this seminar. I am actually a co-chair of the working group of digital government in NISPAC. One of my other co-chairs is here, Stephen, coming from Estonia, of all countries. So he can tell you a little bit more about what makes Estonia special in this digital delivery of public services. And another co-chair of ours could not attend, David Spacek from the Czech Republic. So NISPAC, as Glenn told you, is the network of schools and institutes of public administration in Central and Eastern Europe. And we have a number of activities. One of our principal activities is an annual conference that takes place in Eastern Europe, in each country, in each year in another country. This year, like this, Glenn said, is in Slovakia, in Bratislava. And we have our own journal, again, a good journal, and you can publish there your papers if you want, related to the field of public administration in one way or another. And we are welcoming in our working group collaborations with other working groups or other organizations, and that's why we were very happy to hear from Glenn, and he invited us to do kind of a joint webinar on a theme of our choosing, and we chose the digital delivery of public services. And I think we have a number of presentations that are interesting. And also they are taken out of our book that we are currently in the process of publishing with Paul Greg Macmillan on case studies on digitalization on different institutions or sectors in countries in Europe, especially Central and Eastern Europe, but not only in Central and Eastern Europe. We have some case studies from other parts of Europe. So I don't want to take too much of your time. I will have a presentation later on the way digital delivery of public services is done in a city in Romania. Glenn, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's get started. We have, besides these excellent presentations, a couple of videos that will give you, as I mentioned, sort of the broad outlines and scope of e-governance and digitization. And they're focused on Estonia, which is recognized really as the world leader in this. And the first video we have, I just want to point out some things for you to kind of look for as we're going through it or seeing it. I think you'll be surprised how early Estonia started in this effort and the role that the president of Estonia played in leading this with a certain kind of vision and energy and commitment that I think is good, and it's one of the key factors in terms of Estonia being where it is. I think you ought to look at also what particular services they started out with as being on e-governance, on online, and so forth. And those are interesting in terms of how they build up the acceptance of e-governance there. And look for the three things that you can't do in e-governance in Estonia. He mentions three. I think you'll find those probably correct. You might not ever be able to do those, but we'll see. Who knows? And I think the other two things is the real basis for this e-governance is trust and security. And when you have that, you can implement these kinds of methods. But if you don't, it's going to be very difficult. And finally, the president's comments on whether e-governance can apply to a big country as well as the small country of Estonia. So, Marina, if you can begin that video, we'll look at that, and then we'll go then into Nicola's presentation. Thank you.
Estonia has the most advanced digital government in the world. Banking, prescriptions, even voting. In Estonia, they're all managed through a single online system called e-Estonia, and other countries are taking note.
This system has been in operation since 2001. It's a convenience for the citizens, and people love it, obviously.
Estonia has been filing taxes and voting online for years with little fanfare. But when, say, a global pandemic hits, those capabilities are actually crucial.
Especially under COVID, all those functions break down. Whereas for us, everything keeps just humming along and there's no break in anything.
Estonia has proven that digital governance actually works really well. So how can we get it up and running everywhere else?
I'm Toomas Hendrik Ilves, former president of Estonia.
As president, Ilves oversaw the rollout of e-Estonia. Nowadays, he lives in California and consults on cybersecurity and digital governance.
I'm smack in the middle of Silicon Valley. In a 12-mile radius, I have the headquarters for Tesla, Apple, Facebook, Google. Yet, if I want to do anything with the government, it's a mess. I mean, I would have to go to a government office like DMV, stand in line there, take along a photocopy of my electricity bill.
Or take taxes. If you're an American, you're probably used to paying for an online filing service or an accountant and have to take time every year doing a comprehensive review of the past year's financials. In Estonia,
we file taxes with about 5 or 6 clicks, and it takes about 2 or 3 minutes.
And it's free. So here's how e-Estonia works.
Each of us has a digital ID. It's based on one single number, it's a public number.
The system operates on a blockchain, meaning that records of each transaction are decentralized and can be securely, transparently verified. Your personal information stays private, and once a piece of information is entered, you never need to enter it again, whether you're applying for a loan or filling a prescription.
There are only 3 transactions that cannot be done online, and that's getting married, getting divorced, and selling or buying real estate.
Ilves entered Estonian government as a diplomat and then as a minister of foreign affairs, just as the country emerged from under Soviet rule.
I was thinking about how to pull Estonia out of the mess it was in, which was it just become independent, was very poor. Mosaic came out, it was the first web browser. You had to buy it and load it into your computer from floppy disks. And I looked at that and I said, well, this is someplace where Estonia is no more backward than anyone else. By 1998, all Estonian schools were online.
And by the early 2000s, the framework for e-Estonia was under construction. And slowly but surely, the public began to adapt to the new digital system.
2005 was our first election. And the first time around, 0.3% of the population voted online. Last May, for the European Parliament, we had 46% of the population voting online.
Especially in the US, the idea of the government collecting and being responsible for your most personal and private data might sound a little alarming. But in the e-Estonia system, every citizen is able to see a detailed log of any time their data is accessed by a government agency. Meanwhile, in countries like the US, governments might collect large amounts of data from your everyday interactions without you even knowing.
The data that is scraped from all of your digital interactions is incredibly vast, and it's all data that my government never sees. So if you want to be dystopian and worry about Big Brother, don't worry about the government doing it directly, worry about the government doing it indirectly. People say, you're a small country, you can do that. We're a big country. But there is no impediment to digitizing governance in larger countries other than server size, because the design is basically the same. But you have to be willing to take the risks of doing this.
And for online governance to be widely adopted, people have to believe in it.
I've been asked, especially since COVID, shouldn't we do e-voting? But it takes a long time to create the trust necessary to have people vote online. It works in my country because we use exactly the same tools that we use to take money out of the bank, to register your kid for school. Since the trillions of transactions that citizens have made over the past 20 years have not been hacked, you trust your vote. I think it's a virtuous circle.
Estonia has shown us that a more modern system of governance is possible. The question is, are we ready to build it? Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, share it with a friend, and check out freethink.com for more stories of people moving the world.
Okay, good. I think that gives you kind of a good start on this whole area of e-governance and digitization, and we'll go into more detail now. If Nicola, you're ready, go with your presentation, which I think is going to be interesting in terms of how one city has put together a whole grouping of people and stakeholders to implement this program and e-governance. So Nicola, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn. Let me share my presentation with you. Okay, I am from Romania. I am from a city which is called Cluj-Napoca. Cluj-Napoca is the second largest city in Romania, about 450,000 inhabitants. And it's a peculiar story in Romania, because Cluj-Napoca was, in communist times, so before 1989, an industrial city. And after 1989, the communists fell, and for a number of years after 1990, Cluj-Napoca was stuck in time. We had an administration that didn't want anything to do with foreign investment or an economy based on services or any other things like this. They wanted factories and they wanted Romanian money invested in Cluj-Napoca. The problem was that there was not a lot of Romanian money in those times because Romania was a very poor country by the standards of the European Union. The city actually started to grow after 2000, and especially after 2004, when a different administration came to lead the city, and they understood that the city cannot develop with only the resources of the city hall. So they searched for resources outside the administration. The economy of the city grew by more than 400% between 2000 and 2019. And I said the rise is peculiar because in Romania, at least, it is unique to have the rise planned in advance. So the new administration in 2004 searched for a way to grow the city. And the city grew by employing and collaboration of resources in the community. And it followed a strategy. The strategy was devised in 2006 and renewed every 7 years. And I know this because I was part of the strategy in 2006 and 2013 and 2021. So the idea was, how can we move a city from those places, the place that it was, so a post-industrial city, gray area, towards a city where people enjoyed living and enjoy a good quality of life. So we devised a strategy to move from a post-industrial economy to a knowledge-based economy. And this is where digitization and digitalization comes in, because we understood at that point in time and updated the strategy, of course, when it was necessary, that an economy based on knowledge and based on a very powerful ITC sector is a way to grow the city and to future-proof its development. So in a quality of life index of cities in the European Union, Cluj-Napoca, you can see it here, again, peculiar for Eastern Europe, is a city in which people like to live in. And if you ask Romanians in what city they would like to live in Romania, a majority of them would tell you Cluj-Napoca. Again, of course, it is marketing and it is a bubble and it is a herd effect, but you have to have something behind it. So how was this possible? This is an index that we composed in our school of the front office services offered by city halls in all towns and cities in Romania. There are 335 cities and towns in Romania. And as you can see, well, the bubble is the size of the city, and the color is the quality of the offered services. You see, Cluj-Napoca is the best city in Romania in terms of front office digital public services that are offered to the citizens. Again, how was this possible? Well, it was possible because, like I said, the community understood that they had to marshal all resources in the community to transform the city. And this includes digitalization or digital transformation of the community and of the city hall itself. So you have the quadruple helix that you all, I think, heard about. So you have government, academia, industry, and community working together towards a common goal. And the common goal was defined in the strategy to increase quality of life for the citizens in the city. So, what are the main actors of this collaboration? The first is the City Hall, and the City Hall understood that it cannot be the leader of anything, because Cluj-Napoca is not a city that can be led towards anything by the City Hall. So they transformed their role into one of a facilitator that tries to connect different resources in the community, again, towards achieving different goals that go towards the objective of increasing the quality of life of the city. The efforts to digitize and digitalize the institution started in 2004, and they got into higher gear, of course, like everybody, everywhere in the world, during COVID times, when all of a sudden they had to deliver public services, but they didn't have the face-to-face channel for this. Yeah, so they, in a couple of months, implemented a lot of solutions, most of them ad hoc and jury-rigged, but they worked, and most of them, again, were kept also after the lockdowns petered out. So some of the achievements of the City Hall, they have hundreds of digital forms. Usually in Romania, if you go to a public institution, you have to fill in a form in written form and then file it with the clerk there, and they will take your form and introduce the data by hand in a computer in a database. Yes. Cluj-Napoca City Hall transformed this and developed, well, implemented all forms for accessing public services are in digital form, and the citizens are able to fill in those forms on the website, and the data goes directly into the database. All documents in the institution goes through the document management system. Again, this is maybe not very high-level technology, but it's something that differentiates the City Hall in Cluj-Napoca from a lot of other city halls around the country. And all public servants that are facing the community or have direct interactions with the community have digital signatures, and they use those digital signatures to sign documents and send them in electronic form. Some of the challenges of the City Hall, it's hard to move a big organization like a City Hall for a big city. And there are a lot of obstacles and resistance to change. Again, another problem is interoperability. Romania has an interoperability framework, but it's not fully implemented yet. So they have problems, institutions have problems exchanging information with one another. And again, peculiar for Romania, digitalization efforts are at a higher level, usually in cities, so at local level in Romania, than at central level. Yeah, in all the countries around us, digitalization and digital transformation started from the central government, usually. In Romania, is the other way around. The second actor, the second part of that helix, quadruple helix, is the ICT companies in Cluj. About 10% of the city workforce works in IT, which means that we have a very educated workforce, and they also expect a lot from their City Hall. Yeah, and private companies, especially in ITC, realize that if they help the City Hall to modernize, they will also get benefits from it. Yeah, more people, more highly educated people will stay in the city, and they will have a higher quality pool of recruits from which to hire their employees. So they created the Consultative Council of Entrepreneurship and Innovation in IT in 2011. In essence, it's a group of CEOs from the biggest IT companies in Cluj, together with the city hall, the mayor, and some of the members of the city hall, and with universities and NGOs, and they meet regularly and they create ideas and they support ideas that help digitalization and entrepreneurship in IT. So, IT sector in Cluj is a very successful sector. There are both Romanians and multinational companies that play in this field, not only multinational, and they are very community involved. Well, the motto is, you know, how the Americans say, a rising tides floats all boats. If the city is doing well, they will do well also. Of course, they face also some challenges of their own. The technological change, you know, AI, how can we cope with AI when maybe these tools will impact the way in which IT companies write code, for example. They have to move from outsourcing to intellectual property, which is an ongoing process that, of course, has obstacles in its path, and in the collaboration with especially with the public institutions in the city, they tend to do things differently than public institutions. There is an organization clash there, and I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment.
Sorry to interrupt, but we need to move along a little faster. So
okay,
the other times.
So the third actor are universities. 10 universities, 90,000 students in Cluj. 1 in 5 inhabitants is a student. So we have very good advantages because we have such a large pool of students in Cluj-Napoca, and all actors benefit from it. And of course, civil society. Cluj-Napoca is the most active, civically active city in Romania. There are a lot of groups and associations and NGOs that pressure public institutions to do things in the city. The whole environment is a collaborative one. For example, all the strategies that were formulated for the development of the city, or sectorial strategies like the digital transformation strategy, were created in a collaboration with all actors. Private companies, of course, offered to the city hall different platforms or software free of charge in order to advance the digitalization of the city hall, programs for digital trainings, and so on and so forth. All the collaborations between different actors in the ecosystem. So there is a functional ecosystem in the Cluj-Napoca, which is, I think, the reason for the success of digitalization in Cluj-Napoca. Of course, we talk about the level encountered in Romania, not in other countries in Europe. There is clear leadership of this effort. There is a clear vision and an ambitious strategy, but also one that can be achieved. And very important, there is trust between actors, because otherwise things will not function. If you don't trust the other party to do their thing, everything breaks apart. These are the way in which the digital transformation strategy on the right and the comprehensive strategy of the city in a way merge towards a city in which technology is a part of everyday life. And I'm back.
Okay, Nikolai, thank you very much. That really presents, I think, a good basis for seeing how complex this maybe process can be, but how the need for collaboration within the whole community is really key to this. I would say that particularly at the local government level, that's even more important than perhaps at a central government level. There's probably some questions in the chat that you might take a look at. For everyone who wants to ask a question or make a comment, you can use the chat, and then later we'll have some time, hopefully, for some direct discussions and questions. So
yeah, the index that we use for front office digital services is an index that I think has 53 indicators specifically chosen for Romania because there are different legal requirements in different countries. But if anyone is interested, I can share you my index and the weights of the index. So maybe we can do some collaboration on this.
Well, that would be very good. Yes, if you can put that in the chat, or
I will send it to Marina, and she can share it with the participants.
Great. Okay, great. All right, we can move on now. We're in good shape on the timing. The next thing is we have a video that will give us a good lead into the presentation we're going to get on Estonia. That's quite an advanced state on artificial intelligence and the use of it there and so forth. It'll give you more detail on how Estonia is providing these services. So Marina, let's start with that and look particularly at all the services that are now online and available to people, to citizens in Estonia, and how easy it is. Okay, thanks.
E-governance is one of the key digitalization topics in Estonia, and it comes in many forms. As a start, the Estonian government completely discarded the old paper document-based decision-making system in the year 2000, all in favor of an innovative digital system called e-cabinet. Nowadays, the session hall is free of any stationary electronic devices, and politicians can use their own portable devices like laptops and smartphones. But how would they log in? Well, just like the rest of us, via ID card or mobile ID. They can see upcoming meeting agendas and also give preliminary votes on topics before the meeting. Topics that don't face preliminary objections won't even be debated anymore, and instead get adopted by default at the beginning of a session. That way, the average session time was cut from around 4 hours to 30 minutes, and this led to the creation of paperless parliament. So, since government representatives could vote online, the mindset started to change. 5 years later, iVoting was implemented and enabled citizens to cast their votes online for regular elections, be they local, national or European as well. Estonians can vote online since 2005, and Estonia was the first country in the world to have used nationwide iVoting in binding elections. How does iVoting work? Well, you need to download the free voting software, have an internet connection and your ID card or mobile ID. Let's try it on this laptop. So I click on ID card, then enter my PIN 1 to get authenticated. Here I have a selection of the different parties. Let's pick a candidate who is running in my district. Then I confirm my choice and enter my PIN 2, the digital signature. Once that is done, I have officially cast my vote. Let's scan the QR code to see if my vote has arrived correctly at the voting server the way I gave it. However, my vote and the status of my participation are always divided. This system also allows me to change my vote during the iVoting period, which effectively means that I can never be forced or bribed to vote for a certain candidate, which makes it a lot more secure than postal voting could ever be. Moreover, the average cost of a vote cast online is a lot lower than that of a physical vote. And of course, it's also convenient, which is why more and more people use it. iVoting is frequently used by elderly people who otherwise might not be able to physically go to polling stations. Digitalization also helps to verify the validity of civic policy efforts such as proposals and petitions. Most online petition portals suffer from the fact that they use email and IP addresses to verify users. But if you use a VPN to alter your location, you can create as many email accounts and as many signatures on the petition as you want. In Estonia, platforms like the Citizen Initiative use the digital signature, so we can use participatory budgeting and include citizens into decision-making processes. But when we talk about e-governance, the biggest question in the room must be how all these services are available to the average Estonian. The state portal, eesti.ee, serves as a portal for most digital services that we can access online. First, I need to authenticate myself with the familiar options: ID card, mobile ID, or smart ID. Once that is done, I have access to services covering topics like healthcare and pensions, doing business, education, and leisure. This website helps me find out which of my medical prescriptions are still valid, when my car is due for the next technical inspection, how I can create a company in less than 30 minutes, and how to update my digital fishing license. Beyond this, I can also see from the data tracker who has accessed my data, when and for what reason. In Estonia, this is called the Truth by Design approach. We also have certain services bundled into so-called life events that make those situations easier when you would usually have to get in touch with several government authorities or registries. As you can see, the online services in Estonia are very user-friendly and generally easy to understand, so that groups that might otherwise be at a disadvantage, for example the elderly, people who have spent few years in the education system, or people with disabilities, are not left behind on the path to digitalization. And this was a crucial realization for the Estonian government. Almost no one truly rejects digital solutions. They just have to be good solutions. An online service that is exactly as complicated as the offline alternative will not get many people excited. But if the online service truly solves a problem for citizens, then it will gain traction. The first service was brought online in 1999, and indeed, it solved a big problem for many people. It was the online tax declaration. By now, people can declare their income tax within 3 minutes and a few simple clicks. This service, the solution itself, was incentive enough and got many people interested in the other digital services that followed soon after. Going beyond simply user-friendly services, Estonia is also working on what we call proactive governance. What does that mean? Well, even though most services are available quite conveniently online for Estonians, it is still ultimately the citizen that approaches the state for a certain service. Proactive services aim to reverse that logic, so that the government approaches you when it knows that you are entitled to a certain service. For example, when my doctor registers the birth of my child, I automatically get access to child benefits and other support measures to which I am entitled. Proactive services are particularly powerful in situations where a large majority of the population chooses one option over another. So, if 99% of people want child support and 1% does not, then that 1% should be the ones contacting the government to inform them about that decision, not the 99%. In such cases, the benefits of saving time are self-evident, and the Estonian government is working on providing such services as we speak. As you can see, e-governance is another one of those topics which show us how the path of digitalization never ends, because there are always new options and solutions that can be implemented. Next up, we will be discussing the topic of mobility services.
Okay, great.
Enter
I
and
think the idea of
experience
proactive
new
services, I think that's really a great idea, a great game changer. And that could really, it sort of alters the relationship of citizens to government, and how people can get these services more conveniently. So that was really an interesting idea, and it's offered into so many different aspects. So be interesting to see how other countries might copy and utilize that as well. And this sort of gives us in now to our next presentation, which is from Estonia. And Stephen will give us some more background on this, and also how artificial intelligence is becoming to be used and can be used in this e-governance and digitization. So, Stephen, if you're ready, take it away.
After going the strong powers of Estonian marketing, because that is what we always say. There are two things in Estonia that we are really good. One is definitely e-governance and digitalization, but the other thing that is strongly linked with it is marketing, and this shows the expertise of marketing. So many different topics, which we can all speak about if you have interest. Proactive services, which is definitely linked to something that I'm talking about in the broader framework. Then also iVoting that it mentioned and other elements as well. It's an opportune moment because just this week on Monday, Estonia actually launched the e-Estonia app essentially. So what happens now is that you can actually access all of these services via a single app where you authenticate yourself, as was mentioned beforehand. The only thing is that it has rushed so much that right now, if you look at the section on identification and you look at the passport and the ID card, it still has a red hyphen mark on top of it, which says that these will still not be legally valid until 2025. So currently we have a cool solution, but wait until the legislative changes catch up. So this is an opportune moment to do the presentation as well. And the presentation, it's somewhat links well with what was right now you saw in the video. It's namely, we have all of these great ideas, great benchmarks, great goals that we want to achieve, but how do we move from beyond this great idea on paper and to actual solutions? And so I'll be presenting some of the challenges specifically with regards to AI-based tools in public sector in Estonia. This is an Estonian thing. We always go through the negatives first, then we get to the positives. So if we look at the leading research on AI-based tools, especially by the JRC AI Watch, then we see that there are essentially three broader promises from AI-based tools: improvements in efficiency with regards to reducing costs, standardizing, as well as automating processes. Then there is improvements in quality, where existing decision-making processes are improved through new analytical tools or new information, new potential situations are monitored beforehand, so enables proactive reaction. And finally, it's the improvements through transformation, namely where these digital tools, these AI-based tools, transform the existing process, where they actually do the proactive service delivery, where they utilize big data to improve decision making, where it's machine decision making. So the prompts are endless. However, the issue is that if we look at the different strategies, both in academia and in practice as well, for instance, Estonia Digital Agenda 2030, it sounds almost like a fairy tale, which partially it is, obviously. So what are the challenges in reaching that? So essentially, first of all, we have all of these great promises, but how do we even reach the launch of these different solutions? Here, the aspects are linked to task environment complexity, where essentially what are the processes that we have to go through when we conduct the single service, what are the language that we use, and what are the information systems in place. This is also not alone, because there are strategic elements next to it with regards to established power structure, who has the mandate in the decision making, whether it's on national level, local level, how is their interaction between each other, where does the private sector come in, and also where do the citizens come in. Then there are also long-term norms and values. What is the end goal that we're trying to reach? Are we only looking for efficiency, but or are we also looking to include new perspective, new knowledge? And finally, there is also technological capacity, which is key and which we focus more on today, namely, what is the ability of these different stakeholders, public, private, third sector, to actually introduce and incorporate these solutions and scale them up as well. Now, the challenges can occur both in the design as well as the implementation phase with regards to substantive perspective in designing the level of control and discretion needed within the tool, but also on a strategic level with regards to different actors, stakeholders, what are the organizational goals, and how does this new solution actually meet the inter-organizational goals, and also the design within these projects, which is what they often are, these project-based initiatives. Who has access to decision-making? Who has the voice to actually enable some kind of change? And this only tends to be amplified when we move to implementation. How do we see irregularities and extreme situations? For instance, what happens when a supportive decision-making tool, which I'm focusing here today, says that we have a hopeless case? What is the reaction then from the public actors? How do they align it with their organizational goals, their professional values? And also linked to it, how do we move away from this situation where the street level bureaucrat who had the autonomy, who had the discretion, now more has to work alongside these established frames? So these are the elements that I focused on. What I did is a multi-case study on specifically decision-making support systems and focused on transboundary collaboration. So when Nico mentioned beforehand this quadruple helix, so I focused on the government and academia collaborations, and one was an example of more academia and industry collaborations. So I'll quickly move on. Estonia as an environment for digital innovation, as you saw from the previous videos, there is a significant amount of work that has been done already, but this is a work of decades. From well before even the 90s, with the 70s and 80s, building up the digital skills, the knowledge, the know-how in the Cybernetics Institute, which is about 500 meters from where I'm sitting right now, which built the base of the people who had the know-how. And in the 90s, during the post-Soviet era, this provided an opportune moment. Why an opportune moment? Namely, this was the moment when the Estonian public administration had to be built from the ground up. The issue is we have very limited resources. We have very limited finances. How do we build the public administration from the ground up? And here, the right people at the right time, at the right place. Thomas Hendrik Ilves was one example, who was also the Minister of Education right around that time, as well as different other individuals like Jaak Aaviksoo. They decided to build the building blocks. First of all, build the skills of the public, as well as future bureaucrats. This is the Tiger Leap program, where they try to institutionalize in schools ICT skills, to build knowledge, to build trust. And on the national level, they started bringing together different actors. First strategies were in 1996 already, and they focused on these different potentials that the ICT revolution at that time could provide. In 2000, when we had the building blocks in place, the significant development started. And here, the two pillars that were mentioned beforehand, the X-Road and the EID. X-Road is the reason why we have right now this discussion on proactive services, iVoting, or also AI-based solutions. Namely, it is the bridge, the interoperability channel where the different information systems are able to exchange information. And this was enabled because we know who are the individuals behind it through the EID. Now, the building pillars enable to go to the functionalities where we have e-health. Later on in the 2010s, we further built these different functionalities through e-residency, which essentially tries to package government as a service and offer it to foreign citizens, but also digital referrals, e-prescriptions, all of it built on the building blocks that were established 10, 20 years ago. Now, the issue is, this is all one single frame of thinking, mindset. All of it was designed for people working behind the PC. Now is the question, where to next? And this is something that the eStonia has struggled for about 7-8 years. What are the potential different visions, directions we could be going? One is, of course, proactive services. The other is the AI-based tools. And this is what I'm focusing on here today. So if you see this horrid mythical creature, this is how we have personalized actually AI-based solutions. And this is the AI-based solutions through the Krati Valley estate. Krat is this mythical creature who does whatever you ask it to do. And the main issue is that it keeps on asking for work. So you always have to give it work, something to do. And the only way it ever stops is if you give it an impossible task to solve. This is a very good analogy for the use of AI-based solutions, because it shows the way that we interpret the AI-based solution, including that to create this mythical creature, you have to give 3 drops of blood to the devil. So it kind of gives you this interesting perspective, this view how Estonians potentially see the use of this tool. Now, this new perspective started to be developed near the 2020s, at the end of 2019, where we started to look at what are the potential for the use of AI with new initial initiatives, which were quite promising, by the Tax and Customs Board, by the Agricultural Registries and Information Board, by the by also the Unemployment Insurance Fund. And these showed that there are potential services where we could actually make use of this AI-based tool. And this has led to Digital Agenda 2030 and the Spearhead, which is through the Bureaucrat, which is essentially this virtual assistant that would essentially give you all of the proactive services that was previously mentioned. Now, I did not focus on this broader level. I focused on specific examples because I wanted to see what are the factors that affect the use of these different AI-based solutions, namely decision-making support tools. So there were 3 initiatives. One was the unemployment risk detection tool. The other one was the fire risk scoring tool. And the third one was a cybersecurity monitoring tool. Now, all of these elements were designed either through government to academia or academia to industry collaborations. The first focused on potential risk of future unemployment and providing service bundles for career counselors. So essentially, this consultant working for the Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund has the individual, they have the necessary data that they receive through the X-Road, and then they get the risk score. And based on the risk score, they also get recommendations. What are potential trainings? What are potential avenues where to go? And supporting that, not on the basis of that, they're able to make some kind of solution where to suggest moving further. Secondly, it's the fire risk scoring tool. This was meant for emergency responders, where they essentially would receive information which regions and specifically which households are more at risk of fire. This is once again because the building registry, the population registry, the weather service information, all of this was put together and analyzed through an algorithm and found potential scores. Now, the issue with this one was simple. Estonia is such a small country, we haven't had enough fires actually to calculate with household specificity. So we could only provide for region accuracy, but it's still value in allocating the resources for the rescue board. And finally, it's the cybersecurity monitoring tool, which basically categorizes different potential cybersecurity risks and provides this kind of a tool set for the specialists to move further. Now, the challenges that the study of these cases highlighted is that whilst Estonia has strong political support, there is limited impact. The limited impact is because there is a lack of knowledge or awareness of potential as well as the goal of these different AI-based tools. So it's often left in project-based initiative, this kind of a graveyard where they manage to do initial pilots, but they never reach scaling up because there is no funding to move further. As I mentioned also, the knowledge and know-how, what it's linked to. Estonia has an interesting situation with digitalization where it's a bit of an oxymoron in that we are centralized and decentralized together. Centralized decentralization. Essentially, all of the digital innovation initiatives, as well as AI-based tools, they are centralized to the national level. But in the national level, it's not a single agency. It's not the ministry. It's devolved towards different executive agencies who actually have the tools, the know-how, the competency to initiate new innovations and move further. The principle there is because the executive agencies are the point that daily operates in service delivery, they are the ones who have the know-how of the different processes and what kind of potential improvement to see from there. So it's this kind of a weird situation where it's tries to engage civil servants from the ground up and to see from their perspective what are the potential rooms for improvement. But the issue is, because we have this element, there are some agencies who are very digitally capable. Of course, the tax agency is brilliant. Tax agencies usually are the ones that lead digital innovation, but there are others who are not as capable, so they don't recognize any opportunities. And finally, the legal uncertainties and ethical concerns. I mentioned beforehand that, for instance, in unemployment, there was risk scoring. The risk scoring sounds awful like profiling. So The issue is, both on the national and the local level, there is still a lack of uncertainty regarding what is the potential role of these tools and how far should they be allowed to go in giving these evaluations, and where should the individual come in. And this is linked with the ethical concerns as well, where you have these civil servants who are concerned that they are not able to fulfill their professional obligation and provide citizens actually any kind of service, where they are being led through the machine. And they want to maintain this trust relation that they have with the citizen. And then this was also what highlighted during the design process, namely, is that you have the substantive aspects with regards to technical challenges you always have. These are data, the quality of data, the amount of data available, also the technical complexity of the tool, namely what are the different variables at play and how to explain it towards the civil servants actually making use of it. But what was more interesting was actually the governance approach. Namely, it's challenging to introduce digital innovation that originates from external stakeholders. Here, the academia was often, for these three initiatives, for two of them, the academia was the initiating party. But we found that there is an issue when there is not ownership taken within these recipient organizations, that they are more skeptical, more critical, and also the academia is not able to as well understand the potential uses as well as limitations. And this was also linked with the fact that there was actually limited engagement, where most of the actors that get involved are these enthusiastic stakeholders, not the enthusiastic stakeholders, but not the other profiles with regards to who are somewhat more skeptical or more hesitant with regards to use of these tools. And this played into the implementation phase, where once you have this initial solution and you try to move beyond the design, it's challenging actually to get the different parties to take it up. Why? Because there are deviations, there are alternative interpretations. There are people with regards to fire risk scoring tool where they say, I have a good hunch, I worked in the field for 25 years. This tool tells me nothing that I already don't know. Or alternatively, this becomes the substitute for decision making. This tool gives me a quantifiable number and I would rely on this. And both of these instances, they actually steer away from the initial idea of the solution. And this was a challenge, namely because they started coming in risks with regards to the potential implications and consequences of tools. Namely, consider if your household is next to a household that has an extremely high fire risk score. What does that do to the individual's property value? Or alternatively, there is an individual that goes for career counseling and the tool says that they're a hopeless case, either due to age, education, or background. How does that affect the individual's potential future in the employment sector, in the employment market? And what may other actors potentially do with regards to this knowledge? So these were some of the risks that came to the fore with the AI-based tools, where to understand the implementation, to understand the use, you need to have a broader dialogue, not about what the technology does, but how it links to the existing services, to the existing processes. And how is it done? It's done by having these multifunctional teams that engage diverse sources of knowledge, not only the enthusiasts, but also the skeptics. Why? Because it gives you a more comprehensive, holistic picture of how actually technology is used, what is the interpretation. And secondly, it's also the question of what are the cognitive biases that we have with regards to using this kind of tool? Where does discretion, the right for discretion, the autonomy of the bureaucrat come in, and where does it outweigh actually this AI-based tool? Where actually it's necessary to have a human approach to the citizen, because the only thing that they want is human-centered approach, where they don't necessarily expect a solution, but they expect somebody to listen. And finally, it is the sense of ownership, as I mentioned before. If the organizations have a sense of ownership towards digital tools, specifically AI-based tools and decision-making support systems, then they are willing to take it into use. They're willing to scale up. They're willing to see the potential errors, fix them. They're willing to develop it further. And through that, they're able to not only make use of the initial goal of the technology, but also look at its potential to move beyond. Okay, I think this is a good stopping point for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. That's a really excellent overview of the potential for AI. I thought it's going to eliminate civil servants altogether, but maybe not. Humans can still play a role here. That's reassuring.
Absolutely. This is this is an interesting discussion that the Estonians have had for some time. There are moments actually in government to citizen interactions where the citizen does not necessarily expect efficiency. They do not want the response in 1-2 minutes, which our online tax declaration obviously does very well. What at times they also expect, even when they know that their situation is difficult, for someone to provide an attentive ear and to listen. And this is very important because if we want still in this age of digitalization, for the government still to stay near to the citizens, it's important also to incorporate and consider the human aspect with regards to digital innovation. Yes.
All right, thank you very much. Well, most of you probably think that there's only positive things from this. But our next presentation will talk about how this can be used perhaps not in the best interest. So Sylvia in Slovakia will talk to us about disinformation and give us some examples of that. So Sylvia, begin.
Thank you very much. I would like to continue with the topic of digital transformation and digitalization of public administration and public policy. And I would like to maybe explain how it affects the stakeholder and implementation of the public policy, and also how it changed maybe the communication in public policy. When we are talking about digitalization, it brought two important facts. The first is that we have the change in the public services, that many of the public services are now being delivered digitally. And the second is that some of the public information are now being digitized. That means that everything is in the digital space. And the second important fact what we have is that the inhabitants and the people, they search for information, but not only they search for information. Thanks to digital transformation, they can also be the creator of the information and also the streamer of the information. And this is something what is the very new, I think, in the public policy and in public administration, that we have also inhabitants and also the common people as the creator and spreader of the information. What is also necessary maybe to say that in between, under all this information, there are also some information, they're huge in very big amount, and we live in a maybe we can say information overload. So when everybody is creator of information, thanks to social media, we live in information chaos, maybe in information disorder and under information pollution. In between all this information, we have also some parts of not correct information, we can say incorrect information, for example, fake news and conspiracy theories and propaganda, satire, parody, and hoax, hate speech, and so on. All this is the what we can say it's our information, we can say it's our disinformation. And now I would like to focus only on this information. Every disinformation has its life cycle. We can see four these points: the creation of the disinformation. The very important point by the creation of disinformation is what is the motivation of the creator, why the disinformation appears. The second, the dissemination. Next is the impact of this disinformation. And the last, very important, is if we respond to the disinformation.
I think there is another screen shared. So could we? Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good.
I'm okay. Is this okay with my presentation, please?
Yes, go ahead. You're on the evaluating information screen now.
Yeah, okay. So I would like maybe to say that in all this disinformation, as I already said, we have fake news and hate speech and hoax and so on. It's necessary to make also order what is what. And we have also not only information disorder, we have also disinformation disorder. And we would suggest how to deal with it and how to tackle it to orient it on these two very important points. The first is truthfulness of information. The question would be if the information is true, is this fact or is this false? And the second is the intentionality of the information. What is the intent? Is the intent to harm or there is no intent to harm? And I think this is the maybe navigation, how to assess or evaluate the information and the disinformation. So we know we have three types of disinformation. I would say we have misinformation. This is the information that is false, but the person who is sharing it believes it's true. The second possibility are the disinformation, where this is information that is false, but the person who create it or share it knows that it is false. This is the important point, that they know that it is false and they stream it. And the last, what is the malinformation? It's real information. So that means it's not false, it's real information, it's something what is true, but it could be misrepresented, misinterpreted, and what is necessary, it could cause the harm, maybe on the country, on concrete organization, on concrete nation, on concrete person. So the idea why it's streamed is maybe to harm somebody. It would be maybe helpful to use these metrics for identify what kind of disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation we have. To be practical, I would like to say about all these hate speech, hoaxes, and fake news, and the misinformation, malinformation, the common term as disinformation. So I will now use only the point as in my terminology, disinformation, as the term for all this kind of disinformations. What is necessary also to explain is what are the typical topics for disinformation, what are the areas for disinformation in public policy, because we know we have disinformation in every point of society, but these are the typical topics, typical areas, what could be the target of disinformation in public policy. These are elections campaign, crises, climate change, migration, security issues, healthcare issues. It was the most important point when we had COVID. For example, the efficiency of waste of public money. Then the target could be public management and governance. Of course, diversity, and it could be also disinterpretation of historical facts. Before we start with the cases about the Slovakia, I would like to explain the methodology, what we have done, how we have assessed the cases. We have some cases that could be on the national level, regional level, it could be in the local level. So the first, what was which level of the government it is, and the second, what is the area of disinformation, what I already have mentioned in the previous slide. So what is the topic, what is the typical issue of the disinformation? The next is who is the creator, who disseminates the disinformation. How is the way of distribution, if the social media or is this oral or other form? The next is the form. What is this? Is this video? Is this text or other points? The next is what is the impact of the disinformation? And the last and also very important point, if the target of the disinformation has responded to the disinformation. Before we start with the cases of Slovakia, I would like to show two interesting surveys. The first is the survey from Eurobarometer. This was 2023, and this shows how often feel the inhabitants affected by disinformation. And when we can see this is the 27 European Union countries, the Slovakia is very close to average of European Union in the answering to this question, how often in the last 7 days were attacked by the disinformation. Not so positive or not worse is the survey of Globsec. This was in 2020, so it was at the time when we had the huge of disinformation about the crisis, about the healthcare, about vaccination. So this was the situation where the disinformation very often. And in this survey, we have the worst position. The Slovakia has the worst position in the evaluated 10 countries from what Globsec has met. Now I would like to come to the cases. And the first case, what I have, is the case about the bridge in the small municipality Čečejovice. And what is interesting that this is a case, the Čečejovice is a municipality in the eastern part of Slovakia with 2,200 inhabitants. And the idea was to build new bridge or to the reconstruction of the old one. And it was allowed by the city council, municipality council. And they started with the reconstruction. And the reconstruction was divided into two parts or two projects. The first project was that they should have firstly make a reconstruction of the gas pipeline. And this was in the year 2022. And afterwards, after this reconstruction of this pipeline was made, afterwards could be done the bridge. And the bridge was in the year 2023, so 1 year afterwards. In between the first reconstruction and the second, there were some disinformation, some fake news or hoax in the on Facebook, in the very concrete group of the inhabitants of this municipality. Is a close group on Facebook, and they have streamed the information that the bridge is overpriced. That means that there could be waste of public money, and that the mayor of the city can't manage it well. So this was the hoax or maybe the fake news at on the platform Facebook. What is interesting that the mayor didn't answer or didn't respond to this hoax, to this disinformation in the phase when the project was in the implementation. This was the project of the bridge was successful, and this was is now works. The bridge is okay, now it works. And the mayor afterwards, after all this project has been finished, afterwards only had a response to the to this creator of disinformation, but not on social media. But what was interesting, he has responded in real discussion. He has invited the creator of the disinformation to discussion to his city hall, and it was in the real discussion. What we can say, it's another way how to respond it. And afterwards, there were no more disinformation about this bridge. So this is what we can say for the to this first case. When I come back, what could be the lesson learned from this case is that how to respond to disinformation. The way what has chosen this mayor is very interesting, and this was fine that he maybe, as he said, is fine that he haven't responded on the Facebook or maybe on other social media, but it was in real discussion. Maybe it also, that's why that we now can see here as the very concrete local government has the close relations to their inhabitants. So maybe it was it could work in this on this level.
Sylvia, you'll have to speed up a little bit.
Yeah, okay. The second what we have is the case of the employment for the school principals in the city of Košice, and this information was that the mayor of the city of Košice wants to fire all the school principals, and this was, of course, hoax. It was not real. Interesting was that the creator of this hoax or of this disinformation were maybe inhabitants or somebody who wanted to change the reputation of the mayor, and this was respond by the mayor on the official Facebook profile. We can see it now. It was official profile of the city of Košice. He has a response that this is not real information. The next what we want to describe is the national level of the case. It was in the situation before the election campaign, in the national elections 2023, and we know that was a concrete creator, concrete author, and the way how it was distributed was the social media and some other platform for communications. The form of the disinformation was the video and was, of course, deepfake, where it was the sentence what was said, or the idea that was said, was that the political representative of the very strong political party, Progresívne Slovensko, that they have the ambitions to increase the prices of beer. And this was deepfake. And of course, there was against the political party and of course against the leader of the political party, and the idea was to have an impact on reputation of the political party. The leader of the political party has responded to this, also on his official Facebook profile, and this was very quickly the response, and also a little funny. So it has made maybe the creator to persuade that this is, of course, the deepfake. The last what we have as example, we know that we had in Slovakia the assassination of Prime Minister. It was in May 2024, and the case of the assassination was very big impact on the public policy and of the national policy in Slovakia. And the hoax, what we now hear is that somebody said that the assassination is not true, and this was the hoax, or this was the disinformation. It appears in many concrete profiles, in some discussions, online discussions, and the way how it was streamed or spread was the text and in pictures. Of course, what is the impact of this concrete case is to change maybe the reputation of the Prime Minister, or maybe was a pre-election campaign, or it could be also about crisis. The concrete target or the concrete topic could be very broad, because the national level of disinformation has another impact as maybe the disinformation at the local or regional level. And these are the 4 cases what we have now in Slovakia, as you know, that we can say so many cases, so huge of cases. But what is important to say, how to deal with the disinformation, not only in Slovakia, but maybe generally. There are already some initiatives also in Slovakia, and this is perfect that we have these initiatives. For example, I have already mentioned the GlobSec as an initiative that they observe the disinformation and the situation, how it spread in Slovakia. Also, we have some other links or some other initiatives, you can see it here. But what could be done generally is, of course, to educate young people, everybody, and also to underline the critical thinking. What is also important that authorities can respond to disinformation and can explain the cases what are in disinformation. What was in our 4 cases shown is if there is a response to disinformation, what was the form on it, and if this affected what it wanted to affect. So this is what I wanted to show you. I hope it was interesting, and I would be happy to discuss about that.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Very, very interesting, those cases. And one of the things we like to do in our webinar is to invite some people who actually have to deal with problems like this. And Sylvia is very nicely arranged for 2 public officials, the Slovak public, to make some comments on this in the terms of how they deal with this. We have the mayor from a city there, Andrzej Kuznierik, which I probably mispronounced, and from a regional government level, Barbara Kovasiva. So, Andrzej, could you just say a few words about your reaction to this, what your experience has been in terms of how you might have dealt with a similar problem, or what you see is happening there with this disinformation?
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Okay,
Yes.
can you hear me? Okay, so once again, thank you very much for invitation for this meeting. As you told, I'm mayor of village or very small city, Sariske Michalany. It is located in eastern part of Slovakia. We have about 3,000 inhabitants in our village. So as I was listening to presentation of Sylvia, I must agree with this, and I really liked example about Čečejovce, because it is the village or small city very similar to our village, and of course on daily basis we meet with this situation with rumors which people spread among themselves in city, in towns. So it is very common situation. We have, or I can mention very many examples, but one is very similar to situation from Čečejovce. In 3 years ago, we made reconstruction of cyclopath. It was supported from European Union funds, and there was a very common problem with disinformation or rumor related to public procurement. One of unsuccessful bidders or unsuccessful organization who wasn't successful, they start to spread disinformation about price, about not correct process of public procurement. So it has impact on our members of public councils. They wanted to cancel this public procurement, and really all project was was how to say, was about to the to whole project was about to
Probably about to fail, to be.
yes, about to fail because of this rumor, and finally it was necessary to make a meeting with members of public council and to explain that 10 big companies from this buildings sector was asked for the offer. So finally, it needed to explain the situation, and we get it right, but it was really close to all the projects to cancel. Okay, so to make it shorter, we meet on the daily basis this situation, but what I found like a solution is to find manners or to find ways how to deliver correct information to people, because this is the only way. Now I'm just saying about local situation, because of course when we say when we talk about regional or public level, it is much more complicated and much more difficult to fight with this disinformation. But in local level, we can find some manners like creating or supporting applications, how to communicate on social media and try to explain people how things go, and maybe to predict in advance what situation can be problem, and focus on that and try to before some rumors begin or create, to explain people. So in general, most of this information relate to public projects or misinformation about public services or misleading information about municipal finances. So this is maybe from my side, this is the free group where are the most this misinformation creates.
Okay, thank you. I think that's a good point. Maybe we need to think about anticipating where situations like this could occur, particularly like in the procurement area and other kinds of things, where maybe the strategy is to have a some kind of action plan to address disinformation or whatever before it actually starts. So thank you for that. And I'd like to call on Barbara. She comes from a regional government level. I think she can explain a little bit about her experience in terms of this disinformation and what she has seen. So Barbara, I'm sorry we don't have a lot of time, but please contribute to the extent that you can there.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction. Good evening or afternoon to everybody. So to be short, I would like to pick up some points from Sylvia's presentation. First of all, what I would like to say and what I observe from my position as the head of regional development is that we are dealing with the disinformation is closely related to the degree of self-governance. Municipalities can fight disinformation better than the cities. Cities can handle it better than the regions. And I think that the closer the elected representative is to the residents of the zone, the better they can fight with the disinformation. So more closely you are related to the residents, better you can fight. This is something that we observed. In the same time, in the recent years, I think that the public interest in governmental topics is growing or has been growing. And the public in Slovakia cares more about the public funds and about how these funds are used. On the other hand, we can observe that the number of the bad news and the stories and the newspapers and within the social media is increasing. And according to the discussion that we had also with the media are selling the bad articles better than the good ones. So in the case of Slovakia, if there are some good stories in the articles, for example, about our region, the good news is often like buried within the article rather than highlighted in the title. So the title is typically like sensational to increase the reader's engagement and to encourage the click of the readers. So negative information in these days has always a greater impact than the positive information. So when something is not true and it's published, it is said that the wider public was informed in that way. And from my point of view, no one realized that the negative information affects not only the elected representative, but also the team of people who are working within the governance within this topic in order to like improve the life of the citizens. So from my point of view, the negative perspective of the world needs to be changed, and we need more humanity and less negativity in the way of publishing the information and in the way of thinking that this is something that has to be changed within the life that we are living right now, or the age that we are living right now. So this is maybe my observation, but thank you very much for listening.
All right, thank you. Those are excellent points. I guess that the old thing is that bad news sells newspapers, right, and so forth, rather than the good news. So I think that's an age-old problem. We still haven't got the solution, but thank you very much for that. Finally, we have a bonus presentation that wanted to bring in. It's from the Belarus. It's presentation about budget transparency, how to measure it, and how digitization may be used to improve budget transparency. So, Yuri, we don't have a lot of time, but please begin your presentation and let's try to move through it and have some questions or some discussion if possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation to present at this interesting meeting.
We don't see your presentation yet.
Okay, I'll try. it. Let's see.
There we go.
Go. Am I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I'm Yuri Krivorodko. I'm from Belarus, and I would like to share with you our project has been implemented by the NGO LPSA Foundation. So this project devoted to evaluation of openness and transparency of local budget in Belarus in period 2020. So let's just well, I will start. Okay. The research question has been posed first to show assessment of transparency level at of the base municipalities in Belarus by use of simplified methodology snapshot assessment, which includes 16 indicators which correspond online budget index transparency methodology. The second question, to find out which factor seems to affect to the transparency measured by Allbit index. Allbit is online local budget local budget. Oh, just a minute. So the method said, just a minute. The methodology, some words about methodology research and method use. Methodology research based on international budget partnership methodology, and we did not deviate from this methodology during the study. Second, the indicators for appraisal has been taken by budget openness index methodology, which comprise 5 publication blocks of information. The study comprised 128 local budgets, in which 118 units is Ryan budgets, and 10 city budgets. They are recognized as administrative territorial units in our country. Oh, just a minute. The method has been used. It emphasis on the availability of documents online was made. Method snapshot assessment were used. 16 indicators with corresponding 5 obligatory blocks of information were selected and suggested by the OB methodology. Criterion on ranking factor exists is 1 point, and the factor is not exist 0 point. Method mathematics, statistics, PACHAM programming were used. The study preparation comprised three steps. First step, we made and explore structure of municipalities, informational content. The second step, we invite experts in order to be objective. Experts in the field of local governments to make the assessment of weight of each factor of indicator. And then we made average point evaluation. You see these 3 steps. And last step, we made recalculation criteria factor or indicators into the points through the expert evaluation. What models were used? We used 2 models for evaluation. First model, model Allbit. The essence, the more points we receive, the more fiscal transparency. And second model, authority of effort models. For example, how local authorities contribute in fiscal information disclosed sufficiently or not sufficiently. So there are calculations. There are 2 formulas for each each models evaluated. And what results? Results by the test by the Allbit index the following. It's aggregate Allbit index disclose information local budget shows that we get average 43.7% of transparency. In our opinion, it's demonstrate insufficient level of budgetary transparency of local budget in all municipalities in Belarus. There are leaders and losers take place in regions, municipalities, and base municipalities. The leaders and losers by the second model authority efforts in fiscal transparency. It's second result. Leaders and losers of the second model, we introduced here a coefficient of authority efforts. The essence of this coefficient, if it's value 1 or more, the local government make sufficient efforts to disclose fiscal information to the residents, to the citizens. And totally different if its value is less than 1, it's insufficient. On the last slide of this, Constanta, and you see that Mogilovskaya Oblast municipalities, Grodninskaya Oblast municipality, Vitebskaya Oblast municipality made sufficient efforts for disclose information for citizens, and totally different Gomelskaya Oblast, Brestskaya Oblast, Minskaya Oblast that receive less than 1 coefficient, less than 1 value. Next part of our investigation was identification factors. Identification factors of openness and transparency. In other words, what factor influence on size of transparency? We try to check dependency from the local budget for financial indicators, revenues, expenditures, per capita revenues, per capita expenditures, and didn't find any essential dependencies. We also check up dependency from territorial and demographic factors, for example, population and territorial sizes, density of population, and didn't find strong dependency as well. Only one outline that can we push up to the push us to the further search for factors that motivate the openness and transparency of budget. It were differences in level of disclosure budget information in cities and rural areas. A characteristic features was that the level of transparency in urban municipalities were on 10.6% points higher than in rural municipalities. The municipalities who neighboring with EU countries showed best results in local government's transparency. Municipalities Eastern Belarus showed the worst results. The correlation didn't confirm any dependency between openness and transparency and the wealth level of health and power, poor authorities, size of budgets, total budget revenues, and per capita revenues. We find out that there are opportunities for digitalization, fiscal openness, and transparency. It was the main study findings. We defined key success factors for digitalization of local budget openness and transparency. The first that digitalizing technologies, snapshot assessments, staggered approach technologies, techniques for techniques for capturing financial information from municipal websites. Third, digital matrix creation. And finally, data processing. I would like to show you a program made in Pacham. So it's program working, and for example, I switch on this. You see this program working, and in order to wait results, the results in this site. For example, this research shows that share of transparency, fiscal transparency in municipalities on Belarus, 45 around 45%. It's not high. It's not high results, but it shows that it's possible to digitalize this process. And you see the program is working. Oh, and what policy recommendation and conclusion? First, openness and transparency of local budget is a trust in local government and its policies. The more transparency, the more trust and policies. Transparency research methodology should be based on the requirements of international budget partnership methodology. Local budget transparency should be measured continuously. It creates obstacles for corruption. We shouldn't forget that in Belarus, as in other centralized countries, there are objective constraints in this area. First, limited opportunities for citizen participation, lack of real local self-governments, rigid system of vertical power, which is noted in the studies of NGOs and civil society institutions and organizations. Necessary to introduce digital technologies and use digital transformation methods. Digitalization makes it possible to maintain budget transparency constantly and permanently. Key success factors of digitalization of budget transparency are the following: well-designed digitalization technologies, method of collected financial information from municipal websites, develop digital matrix and data processing. In general, digitalization in public finance should be developed along three main lines: budgets for citizens. It's, for example, budget openness and transparency, tax payment, participatory budgets. Thanks for attention. For more details, I would like to show our papers published devoted to online openness and transparency measuring. So you can find the details for calculation and methods used. So thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. Thank you for making that an excellent presentation. I think an important point is if we're going to use these tools, we have to figure out where is the best possibilities or the best places or methods or techniques or whatever to use. So it's interesting how you've used this methodology, and that way you can highlight some places where digitalization, e-governance can make some impact. So thank you very much. I want to say something very quickly because we're getting close to the end. I'm in Kiev and we have a power outage scheduled in about 5 minutes. So I ask anyone who has a comment to say anything now. And if I drop off the screen, it's because my power has gone out and I've lost connection. So anyone want to make a comment or some announcement or anything, please do so now.
If I may, I have a question or comment. Can I start?
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so it's mostly for Nikolai and Stephen, because, you know, listening to your excellent methods and techniques developed in the country, I'm just wondering, what is the real impact of this technological change on government, on governance? Because I see, and especially on decentralization, because I see a tendency, and I don't know if you agree with that or not, that these methods like centralized accounting system or issuing building permits along standardized rules by using technology and centralized information, actually sooner or later will lead to a more centralized system of government. Do you see a tendency or do you see this risk?
I can say that for Romania, there is tension there. There is tension between cities wanting to do more ahead of the building blocks that traditionally were offered by the government. For example, national ID, EID scheme, or I don't know, central government created national registries that are not implemented fully yet in Romania. So cities want to do more and they move at their own speed. And the central government for now in Romania is playing catch up. In other countries, it's a different thing. So I think that the central government will get their act together and then standardize the way that public services are delivered at local level. But I think that we are in Romania way off from them. And Stephen can tell you more about Estonia probably.
Well, it's interesting because Estonia is a bit of a, in some essence, it's a bit of an opposite case because we have digital innovation that comes primarily from the national level. There is a tension there, of course. This is with different services. For instance, a couple of years ago, one of the big digital initiatives was centralized patient registration. So if you wanted to get an appointment, then you go to this portal, and from there you can find yourself an appointment time. Now, the issue there was specifically with regards to specialists. For specialists, if you want to go free of charge, you need a digital referral. And in some local hospitals in smaller municipalities, people had devised their own routines for doing this. So they are aware of the local specialists. So if a patient goes to them, this is a general practitioner usually, they know to whom to refer to. But now, because of this digitalization, the requirement was that all of appointments have to be put into this central platform. So they technically could not do this anymore. So there are all kinds of these shortcuts that are, of course, affected by it. But the opposite of it is beforehand, you had to call. For some specialists, there were appointment times that were given once a month. So you had to call this healthcare provider, wait in line, wait on hold for about 3 hours before you actually manage to get an appointment, and that's even if you're lucky. So there are both sides of it actually that are at play. At one hand, you lose these improvised routines at the local level, but on the other hand, you do get some kinds of efficiencies in return. What is crucial, has been crucial for Estonian digital innovation is limiting additional administrative burden. So you may lose out on these comforts that some local level service providers have designed over the years, but you shouldn't have to do additional further steps. So that's it's still a tension there, and it hasn't been solved. To this day, each strategy is still trying to figure out how to remain human-centric whilst all of these solutions go for standardization. This is one thing that proactive service provision tries to tackle, but this is still into the future. So it's a tension that's still there.
Okay, great. Well, finally, I want to say thanks to our presenters and our special guests and so forth, and to everyone who stayed with us for this. I hope you found it very interesting. This was something I really didn't know anything about, so I'm really glad we were able to work with the NISPAC working group. I just remind you, when their book does come out, we will publicize that, and you'll be able to get the book and read a lot more about what's been presented today. So I'm still online. Maybe they're going to give me a little more time with the power. So anyone have anything else to say? If not,
I just want to thank you, Glenn, for hooking us up with all these people. And I think that this is a start of a fruitful collaboration between our groups.
yes, exactly. I'll mention to all the participants, NISPAC has, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 different working groups, not just this one. So if you have an interest in some other areas, particularly finance or services or
law or reform or education.
Right. Go to the NISPAC website, look up their working groups, and join them and make contact with them and read their journal. If you really want to know what's going on in Central and Eastern Europe in public administration reform and policy, that journal is going to be your very best source, and it's excellent articles, peer-reviewed. So it's really quite good. So with that, again, thank you very much.
And
Yes,
I resume the power cut.
It seems that
Yes.
the blackout. Okay. Goodbye.
Okay,
Maybe
thank you very much.
very much.
We will
Bye.
have the next meeting in March, so you will get the invitation.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.